And before we go to the air, or is it stay on the ground? Yeah, let's stay on the ground. In fact, the day after tomorrow, 9th of March, will be 1 year since the handshake. I don't know why we have not been told about the handshake day, a public holiday like this or something of the sort. But at the heart of that handshake, one of the agendas was the fight against corruption. In fact, I'm looking at some of the tweets here, calling Salasia Olekit, at least regional balance for Kaikai. Corruption in Kenya has even corrupted the citizens, that they can't stand to fight it. Instead, they defend the thieves, saying mtuetu, yet they want corruption to end. Another one called Njogona says, in Kenya, justice is for the corrupt rich, the law is for the poor. And lastly, Gashane, they want to politicize corruption so that the war loses meaning and slowly turns into political witch hunt and succession politics to attract sympathy. I dare them to let investigative agencies to carry out their work. The part of the investigative agencies is DCI, and Henry Rotich, the cabinet secretary in charge of finance, has been there three days in a row. And
for 12 to 14 hours each day.
And you hear stories that he's likely to be charged in court, that he's likely to lose his cabinet slot, and so on and so forth. He looks like the fall guy because that's where the money is coming from anyway.
Because I think, Gachuri, we've all heard about the 300 questions or 200 questions that he supposedly was asked at the DCI. And one of the main issues that he's being asked about is why he released the funds without due diligence being done. Remember, the AG, I think in 2016 or 17, advised against any money being paid to this company, CMD Ravenna, the one that is at the center of the Aurora and Kemorel dams. But money was still given despite that warning from the AG. And Rotich is the guy who has to answer questions about why money was given. And we've done stories upon stories about this dam in Aurora and Kemorel. And what has come through and what is clear is that nothing has been done 25 months down the line. So those are some
but
of the
not just
questions
in Kemorel. There are also other dams where it took a lot of time before anything could happen, yet a good chunk of money had already been paid. They're saying it's for its facilitation to enable the company mobilize and get its house in order before they take off.
I think, Francis, for Henry Rotich, these are 3 very difficult days, especially for his image. Because going to DCI, and even the amount of time he's taking there, means definitely he's having to explain very difficult things. So the question then becomes, how tenable is this time in cabinet? I think Henry Rotich is on his way out.
You won't be surprised if you have a new cabinet secretary in charge of finance reading the budget this
head
year.
of treasury, because again, those trips are damaging. They stick on you.
Yeah.
They are not good. They mean you are told not to do something a certain way by the Attorney General, and now here you are trying to explain. And again, going by his own statement and admission that 20 billion shillings was paid out. He definitely has difficult questions to surmount, and also an image that he needs to preserve past those allegations. Can he do that? I doubt that. I think it's endgame for Henry.
But I think it's important also that a number of other people answer the questions, because this was not just something that was done, you know, by the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury in the first place, but even overall to talk about the role that the government actually played in conceptualizing this project. Like Jamila was talking about CMC de Ravenna, and that's what they call the EPC contract, where they project, engineering, design, procure all materials, and actually are allowed to go seek the funding in their home countries. So there's something about the government and what role it played in terms of saying, so this is the dam, this is what we need, this is where we're going to do it. I mean, I think the Cabinet Secretary for Water, and like we talked about last week, it's very confusing to see where the reporting lines were. This is done between 2015 and 2017. Then the Cabinet Secretary for Water and Irrigation was CS Wamalwa. Then, you know, Chelugui takes over, but the Water Department is moved to Agriculture, and then Irrigation, was moved to Agriculture, and then you have the Cabinet Secretary now for Agriculture and Irrigation, Kyunjuri. So those 300 questions, I think, need to be asked of a number of individuals, including KVD. And remember, KVD also falls under Regional Development Ministry,
which was initially at
EAC, yes. So, and that is the difficulty with all of this. Where, who made what decision, under whom does this fall, who takes responsibility. And to some degree, I think all of these people should be answering all of these 300 questions and more.
Joe, I'm looking at it this way. Look at the making of a scandal. We talked about it
Where does it start?
last week.
Yeah.
Every other scandal that has happened in this country, it begins with something very noble. You're told this Anglo-leasing type contract, we are going to have digitized passports and so on and so forth.
A forensics lab.
Yeah, forensics lab.
CID,
and then you're told for, let's say, Galana Kulalu, this is the deal. This is how
1
food
million
security will be dealt
acres
with.
of land under irrigation.
When you're told about roads, this is how we are going to open up the economy, the villages, electrification and so on and so forth. It comes with very grand things, and you're told this is the game changer. This is it. But all of a sudden, it ends up being a scandal.
Isn't there something they say about pigs and a fat one or something? I mean, like it's
Chagua alienona.
yeah. So I think that is what happens. But look, how are you ever going to convince anyone to give money if the project doesn't look noble? I think the problem is that it's never in the intention. It is what actually happens. The stated intention usually appears to be noble, but in the end it looks like the intention in the first place was actually not what we were made to believe, and that is what happens with all of these projects. And then secondly, I think what happens, and Yvonne alluded to it, in this kind of obfuscation of the whole thing, where you can't actually figure out what really happened. Corruption scandals are meant to be complex, too complex for the simple mind, so that by the time you're explaining to Wanjiko that, this thing went, I don't know, to Italy and went to London and came back here, they are lost in a lot of things are lost in translation. And that, I think, I've come to believe actually that it is deliberate, that corruption scandals are meant to be too complicated, so that by the time all these clever people are explaining it, the politicians will just simplify it.
Francis,
And
before I weigh in on
2022
we move to the handshake anniversary, which is coming up in 2 days. I've had a few requests on Twitter from our viewers who want to hear the tribal breakdown again one more time. I'll go to that and quickly tell you that out of the 115 people for various corruption scandals, from Mumia Sugar, NSSF, NHIF, NYS, Kenya Power, Embu had 2, Kikuyu were 43, the Luo were 18, Luya were 11, Meru were 6, the Kisi were 5. There was 1 Borana, 1 Sabot, 6 Kalenjins, 6 Kambas, and 2 Mijikendas, and actually 1 Masai, 3 Taita, and a Somali.
Which one?
Are you just revising the list as we go?
I'm serious, there are no names. But that was the breakdown. But when we talk about Henry Rotich, because many have been saying that, we see all these people being arrested, taken to court, but they're released on bail. No one has actually been jailed. If Rotich is arrested, he'll be, I think, the biggest name so far. And it brings me the whole question of Uhuru Kenyatta and the threats he's been issuing. In fact, remember, we are going to start putting 1,000 shillings here if he
so
speaks, talks stuff.
Well,
yes,
he did a mini reshuffle.
And we yes, exactly. I'm going to the mini reshuffle. A lot of people are saying this reshuffle was underwhelming.
There was no
this
reshuffle
was underwhelming because remember, Echesa lost his post as Minister for Sports. Amina Mohammed was moved from education, now she's in sports, and then we had one Professor Magoha coming in. People are saying this is underwhelming. We expected a lot more heads to roll. That didn't happen.
LK, I want to deal with this twin question. One, these big projects, big money, foreign companies, ostensibly to make it look like these are the guys who will come and do this job. But those foreign companies obviously have their local agents around, and these are the guys who also influence how they are going to get these tenders. Number one. Number two, I'm also looking at the concerns, especially on Twitter here, that we are talking about huge figures, 21 billion, 7 billion, 10 billion. Yet, guys, when the people are taken to court, you see charge sheets that read 230 million, 280 million. Where is the difference? Right. Is it big headlines with little substance that is being taken to court?
Look, there is a lot of substance that investigators have to really comb through. Look, for example, at the 4.5 billion shillings that was wired back to Nairobi. And then what do we get out of it? We get tiles and carpets, towels, blankets, pillows. I think there are pillows at some point. Now, that is the local element of of corruption. Basically, these foreign companies come in as agents of local powers. Because do we need a bigger example than the fact that we've hardly heard from CMC D.
Ravenna.
Yes.
We've heard more from politicians who have absolutely taken up the role of spokesmen, talking about this project and in good detail. And you wonder, at what point do they become the spokesmen of these projects? Number two, on the amounts you're talking about, it's not about development, it's not about people. Dams have created more billionaires than it has created water for or megawatts for our national grid. Let's not forget dams that have never taken off. There is Umar Dam in Kitui.
Yeah.
That's under the Kibaki administration. We all assume, well, it was supposed to die. You go to Umar Dam and you'll see rotting machines, and every time it rains in Kitui, a lot of water really goes to waste.
There's even the one in Marsabit, Badassa.
What's happened to that?
Yeah.
But they are individuals, and they know themselves. They could be watching. They are enjoying this. They have become real estate players. They have become wealthy. Their kids are doing businesses and trading with governments probably because they took the opportunity to create wealth through these mega projects. These mega projects are not about people. They are about creating billionaires out of politicians.
But I think one of the things that we cannot lose sight of, because we were talking about the handshake just a short while ago, and I think the handshake has been both boon and bane for the war on corruption, because if you look at it, it has been possible, for example, for the president to talk a little bit more stridently against corruption, knowing that politically he has a little bit of cushion in that way. But there are also people who say, look, these people, for example, in ODM, Raila Odinga himself doesn't seem to talk much about corruption scandals that are happening at the heart of government. Some people would say, well, what's going on right now is perhaps a continuation of this on and off fight they have with the deputy president. But the truth of the matter is that there isn't a very consistent voice from outside of government that raises all these issues about corruption. Even the I said consistent. listen even to the whole issue of JKIA.
Yeah.
I saw Musalia, to his credit, he spoke a little bit about it today, but I think that you would expect that there would be some uproar in Parliament in a very significant way about what is happening there, but it's not happening. So there's a sense in which the handshake has skewed the political conversation around corruption, the political pressure that usually is important from the opposition side that comes to bear on the government, and the government probably might do certain things differently. So I think the handshake has been good for the fight against corruption, but it has also been very bad for it.
And indeed, Isaac Muthusi on Twitter says, why is Raila Odinga silent on the JKIA takeover? Well, he may be silent, but we're going to talk about it